Hello and welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show. I'm your host, Mark Philpott. This is episode 90 of the Global Travel Channel podcast show. If you're looking for previous episodes, you can find them all at our website, www.globaltravelchannel.com. You can download them from places like iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio. They're all listed there on our website, how you can get the podcast show. If you're a loyal listener, welcome back. It's great to have you with us. I hope you're enjoying all of the episodes. If you're a first timer, welcome. It's great to have you on board. I would love to find out how you heard about the show. So why don't you drop me a note on Instagrams, on Twitter, or on the Facebook page, and just let me know how you came across our show. Okay, let's get on with today's show. My guest has traveled to over 80 countries around the world. And in this episode, she's going to tell us about how she's using the knowledge she gained from traveling to help other people now. The solution she came up with could be a game changer in the travel industry. Let's find out what it's all about by welcoming to the Global Travel Channel podcast show, Sahara Rose Vore. Sahara, welcome to the show. So it's a very warm welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show to Sahara Rose Vore. Sahara, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Have you ever been on a podcast show on a sailboat before?
I have not.
Well, this is your first time. I like creating first time experiences for my guests. So
that's pretty awesome.
So how are you going today? And more importantly, whereabouts in the world are you talking to us from?
Yeah, so I'm actually back in my home state and country. I'm back in the U.S., originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So I'm back for the holidays. I just came back from about a month and a half trip. I was in Poland, Romania, and then spent some time in Israel and Portugal. So I just got back home and now home for the holidays before I take off again.
So you will be wrapping up nice and warm at the moment in that part of the world.
Yeah, it was super nice. It's their winter over there, but it was really nice over in Israel where I was, but it's pretty cold where I am now.
Yeah, I bet. Now, I bet you're a veteran to the podcast world. What is it that you like about podcasts?
I just love being able to have such raw, authentic conversations with people. Everyone has such a unique perspective and different take on everything in life. So just being able to have this non-scripted type of conversation really is super fun and interesting. And all the different podcasts have different topics, and the hosts are always, have different personalities and different, takes on what their podcast is about. So that's always really fun, just seeing how I can fit in my passion and love for travel with these different types of podcasts.
Have you come across a lot of travel-related podcast shows out there?
Not as many as those that are not travel related. So I think they're definitely on the rise, but I definitely have not encountered as many as you would think there would be, because travel is something that so many people love to talk about. But I definitely see that a lot of podcasts fit in the travel topic into theirs, despite what their general concept and niche is, because I feel like it's such a relatable topic in so many people's lives in such unique ways.
What kind of podcast do you like listening to when you're not listening to music and stuff?
I like anything with a sense of humor, but also I'm a crime person. So if I hear podcasts and there's crime stories, I am tuned in and I am intrigued.
Okay, good. If you like a bit of comedy, then I strongly suggest you go back and listen to my latest episode. I just interviewed a bunch of guys who are sailing across the Atlantic Ocean, making a TV comedy sitcom as they go, and it was hilarious. So,
oh my gosh!
if you like a bit of a laugh, go and listen to that.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, on my show, I always offer my guests the opportunity to actually dedicate the episode to someone special in their lives. So who would you like to dedicate this episode to today?
Oh, for sure. I have to dedicate it to my mom. I mean, I wouldn't have the strength and the courage to go and explore the world as much as I have without having such a strong mom in my life. So definitely her.
And what's your mom's name?
My mom's name is Frida.
Frida, well, Frida, this is for you, and a lovely dedication from your daughter. And I'm sure you two can actually have this now for the rest of your lives to look back on as another special moment between the two of you. Now, I'm going to keep your mum in the picture here, because one of the first questions I wanted to ask you today was your name, Sahara. It's a fantastic name. Tell us the story behind that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually a question that I get quite a bit, especially traveling, especially when I was just out in Israel. They found it quite interesting. But my name simply just came from my mom was very close with a Persian family when she found out that she was pregnant, and her friend had a niece named Zahara with a Z on it, and she really liked the name. She asked the family if she can use something very similar, and she wanted to put an S on it to make it look a little bit more Americanized, I should say, and not as exotic with a Z, but it just happens to be spelt the same way as the Sahara Desert. So a lot of people associate my name with the desert. But there's also a flower out there in the Middle East called the Sahara flower, and it looks very similar to a rose, and a rose is my mom's favorite flower, so that's where she named me Sahara Rose.
Wow, that's a beautiful story, and also quite applicable for the traveling side of things that we're going to get and talk to you about today.
Yes, I know everyone says when they meet me, you're destined to be a traveler with that name, and I guess I am.
So let's talk about that. When was your first international travel experience?
I started traveling when my mom's mom, my grandmother, and my mom's dad, my grandpa, were from my grandma was from Mexico and my grandpa was from Canada. So growing up, we would go in the family van, venture from the Midwest down to Mexico every summer, as well as we would drive up to Canada. So those were my first international trips when I was a child, but I didn't remember too much of them because I was quite young. So my travels really didn't begin until I graduated from university, and that was over 10 years ago. So I studied hospitality and tourism management in Chicago, and I fell in love with all that the travel industry was about and what hospitality was about. And I always had a sense of adventure, but I just had something in me that said that I wanted to go and explore the world. And I figured out a way to do that financially for myself and build up the courage to go and do that. And that's when I really started. So I was about 22 years old when I began traveling, and kind of never really stopped ever since.
Mm. So after you graduated and you took that first trip, whereabouts was that to the first time you left?
The very first country that I landed in was Ireland. Yeah.
Why did you choose Ireland?
Well, I was heading to do the typical backpacking Western Europe adventure at 22, and I chose Ireland because I wanted to. One, Dublin has pretty affordable flights to and from the US, as well as I wanted to kind of make my way to the mainland and create some sort of route for myself. So I flew into Ireland and then made my way to the mainland and then traveled around and then ended in England before returning home. So it was kind of like this loop that I did. So there was also a friend of my mom's that lived in Ireland. So it was a nice kind of introduction. I stayed with her and her family for a week. So it was a nice introduction for my very first trip to be able to at least have somebody with me to kind of show me around, and it wasn't too much of a shock at 22 that I was in a foreign country by myself for the first time. So that's kind of why I chose Ireland.
Fantastic. Now, I always say to my guests when we talk about travel, travel comes with three distinct impacts, I believe: the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual impact. How could you relate to that for that first trip that you took to Ireland and Europe on the first occasion?
Yeah, I honestly, other than just having the side of adventure, I turned to travel because at 22 I didn't know who I was. I was looking to really figure out who I was as a person and what I wanted out of life. I didn't want to go down the quote unquote typical route in life of climbing the corporate ladder after graduating from high school and then college and then getting a job and an office job and getting a family and buying a house. And I want all those things at some point with family and stuff, but I wanted to really create my own life and lifestyle. and find out who I was. And I knew that the world had so much to offer, and how could it not? It's so big with so many beautiful places that I knew I needed to go and explore that. And in terms, I would explore more about myself. So it was definitely a spiritual journey, and the travel's always a spiritual journey for me, but especially in the beginning stages. I'm an only child, and I wanted to meet new people. I wanted to be able to test my strength and test my character and see what I was passionate about and where my purpose lied in life. So traveling has always been, especially in the beginning, a spiritual and emotional journey for myself.
Why did you choose to travel alone when you took off?
Coming as an only child, I always kind of felt like if I didn't really have anyone I was never afraid of doing things on my own, because it's hard to be able to find people sometimes to kind of agree with you, or to go, have your same desires in life. So I wanted to be able to not mold what I wanted or shift what I wanted based on what other people influence or any influences. So I was never afraid to go alone. I knew it was definitely going to be a challenge, but I knew that, I had a whole life to live, and I am a girl on my own to be able to go. And there's going to be many times in life I was going to have to face different things on my own and be challenged. So I was not afraid of it. And I knew I was going to learn a lot, and I was really going to grow as a person from it.
Are you a Sagittarian?
I'm an Aquarius.
You're an Aquarius. Okay. Okay. Join the club. Okay. Now, from that first travel experience, when you went over there to Ireland and to Europe, what was the kind of realization about those things that you just talked about yourself? How did it open up yourself to the world? And more importantly, what did you learn about yourself?
Oh, geez, what didn't I learn? I always say that traveling was my greatest professor. Traveling has taught me really everything that I know, and it has created who I am today. Being able to expose yourself to different ways of life and other belief systems and perspectives really builds a sense of you not only gain a lot of empathy and compassion, and learn how the importance of human connection. And I learned that it's okay to sometimes ask for help. That goes back to me being, an only child. I was always used to figuring things out on my own and fixing things by myself, that I learned that it's okay sometimes to ask for help. And in turn, I met so many beautiful, what I call my travel angels throughout my journey, who have helped me at times that I've needed, whether it was, answering just questions for me, or point me in the right direction, or giving me a ride somewhere that was really at a desperate time of need, or maybe a place to stay. But I just was able to learn that it's okay to, depend on others sometimes, and that you don't always have to figure everything out on your own, but also realize how beautiful the world and people are. A lot of times people are afraid to travel outside of their comfort zone because of what the media or the news might say, or what others might tell them. But I like to travel to places that are, not so touristy, or considered quote unquote unpopular, or maybe even dangerous sometimes. But those type of places are really where you get to dive deep into a new sense of culture and a new way of understanding what it's like to live in the shoes of someone else, and just seeing how compassionate people are, how generous people are. And that all of the stuff that I learn, I incorporate into my daily life and build my own character of, who do I want to be and how do I want to treat others. And also I apply it to my business life, my home life. What kind of lifestyle do I want to have? And, I'm a very minimalist type of person. I realize that you don't need many things in life to be happy. Just the faces that you see in people around the world who have very little and are still so happy, you realize that material things really don't matter. So it's little things like that traveling has taught me. And I don't think that I would have really realized that if I never explored the world as I have.
When you first went overseas, did you see a different world than what had been portrayed in the American media?
Yeah, and even to this day, yeah, absolutely. To this day, you see a lot of the bad things that happen in the world, whether they're riots or, anything. There's a lot of current things going on with protests. And it's different when you get to those places, oftentimes. Even, whether it's even the Middle East, a lot of people are always concerned when I head over to the Middle East because of what they are told from the media. Um, but it's really a different thing to hear and be delivered isolated news on an isolated location, and then to go and be exposed to a whole country and realize there's a lot more out of that country and in that country, or that destination, than what is being just portrayed to you.
Mm.
So definitely.
So, in terms of the world that you've been part of, in terms of this travel experience, have you seen the world as a much more generous place than maybe what you might have first thought?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when I started traveling, I didn't know anything about the world. As most people are, you're sheltered your whole life in your school system, in institutions, in your school systems. I went from grade school to middle school to high school, then to college, and those are all institutions. You're sheltered by your family, by the media in your home country. So I didn't really know what I thought of the world quite at that age. I didn't put too much thought into it. But I definitely, throughout my travels, realized that, it opened my eyes to how generous people are, how lovely people are. I've been to places where, they welcome you with open arms to feed you, to shelter you, to give you anything that they have. And there's sometimes people who have very little in life. They probably have less in life than you do, and they're still giving you everything that they have. And
Mm.
or it's someone who is coming to you at a time of need and sees that you need help with, you might look lost, or you might, you know, whatever it might be, they want to share something, part of their homeland or their culture with you, and show you some place that means something to them. And so it's just really being able to meet people and have these encounters that really change your perspective on humanity, especially in a time like today when, a lot of times, a lot of people are stressed these days. There's a lot of, people deal with a lot of things in life. And a lot of times it's really easy to be, self-absorbed and only care about yourself and what you have and what's going on in your life and what you can get for yourself. And being able to travel and realize that, having these experiences where people are so giving to you and so caring, and they don't even know you, really changes your perspective on things and makes you say that, realize that there's a lot more to life than really caring about these trivial things that really don't matter sometimes.
Mm. Do you think that your travel experiences have made you a more compassionate person?
Absolutely. Oh, for sure. Just being able to be, even just being gracious as well of, what I have, or even what other countries have that we don't, and being able to understand and see how other people live and how other people have, how their way of life might be different, and how things can be a lot more difficult in life, and just being able to have compassion for people who, have to work a little bit harder, who have to work longer hours and make, maybe $20 a week, and spend hours in the sun or outdoor, you know what I mean? So it's being able to be hyper aware of what the world really is comprised of, it really helps deepen your sense of compassion for people, and also teaches you gratitude for yourself.
Mm. Yeah, that's excellent. When you came back from that first travel experience, how long was it before you took off again? Was it a case of it gave you a real hunger to get back out there and explore more of the world?
Yeah, it wasn't long at all. I came home. The first trip was about a month and a half, and I came home for the holidays. So I think I was home for 1.5 months, maybe two, and repacked a bag, different types of clothing, more warm weather, and I headed to Central America for 2.5 months, which was my second trip.
Mm. How did you choose that as a destination? Why was that the next one on the list?
I had always had a fixation with Costa Rica. I don't really know why. I didn't know much about the country, but partially is having grandmother being from Mexico speaks Spanish, so Spanish has always been a big interest of mine, and I knew they spoke Spanish in Costa Rica. And but in my Spanish classes and in schools, whenever we had a project to choose a Spanish speaking country, I always chose Costa Rica. And I'm an artist and I love nature, so I would always associate Costa Rica with the bright colors of the foliage and the trees and the leaves and the exotic birds. So for me, Costa Rica was always this tropical place I had always wanted to visit. So since it was in Central America, I knew I included like Guatemala and other places around there to kind of make it more of an adventure. And so that's kind of what drew me there. Plus, it was warm weather, and I was tired of being cold over in Western Europe at the time and at home.
Are you someone that does a lot of detailed planning in terms of your itinerary, or do you just go with the flow when you hit the ground?
Oh, absolutely. I am not a planner at all. I am a go with the flow. I will see how I feel tomorrow and what I feel like doing. I kind of think of a general route. I'll say to myself, I'm thinking about going in this region. I choose the region of the world. I'll see what countries I'm interested in going over there. And I just book my initial flight and I go from there. I feel like if you really are doing yourself a disservice if you stick with a strict itinerary. And I know people want that control. They want to know what they're doing every day and they want to try to get everything into one trip. But sometimes the best experiences come from those that are on the whim. Whether that's meeting new people. I meet people in my hostels or my accommodations all the time, and they tell me of where they just came from, and it's a place sometimes that I never heard of, and I look at a photo or I see their excitement in their eyes, and I'm like, okay, I'll go there, and I actually fall in love with the place. That happened to me recently on my past trip. I was in Krakow, Poland, and I was in a dorm room, and the girl in the bed below me, she just came from Slovakia, and she said, oh, have you been to a place called Zadir? I know I'm butchering the name, but I don't know how to say it, but it's in the Tatras Mountains, just across the border of Poland and Slovakia. And I said, no, but I know I'm heading towards Bratislava, Slovakia. And she said, well, check out this place. It's in the mountains. It's beautiful and has great hiking. And I know I like to hike. And so she showed me a couple photos of this green reflective mountain lake with mountains that mirrored the lake, and it was beautiful. And I said, okay, I'm going there. So I booked I think it was only like $14 bus, and it was about a 3-hour drive, and went to the mountains. I initially was going to stay for just 2 nights. I booked. I ended up staying for 4. Everyone who was there tend to stay longer than they initially planned. There's actually a lot of people from Australia and New Zealand there. And it was just in the mountains, randomly in the mountains. And in the place, there's really nothing around, but it was beautiful. So it's places like that. I would never, if I had stuck to a strict itinerary and said, I'm going to Krakow, now I'm going to go to Bratislava, I would have missed that place.
I just want to update you at this stage that that's what us Kiwis usually do, is we just hang around in mountains.
Yeah, I know. They love it there. A lot of the volunteers they came as guests, and now they're volunteers in the hostel that I stayed in. So a lot of them were were Kiwis.
Has your way of traveling changed over the years in terms of the way that you go about it? For instance, what's the first thing you put into your backpack or your suitcase these days?
Well, it definitely has changed. As for packing, it hasn't been as different, but now that I run a business from my laptop, my way of traveling has changed. Well, now I pack business stuff with me. I have more technology with me than I did before. But I really haven't changed much as for, the things I bring with me, as for clothing or, stuff like that. I've always been I'm a very free spirit when I travel with what I own, because I always feel like you're going to get dirty anyways. It might get lost, it might get stolen, you never know. So I'm not too keen on like caring much about what I pack, but I definitely have changed the way that I traveled over the years, because one, I definitely done my fair share of 15-hour bus rides or overnight buses or trains, so that's kind of in the past, but just being able to travel for business, I am more aware of, my timing, my flight schedule, of having decent Wi-Fi, if I'm going to be connected, what type of places I stay in. Am I going to have a place that's quiet that I can do interviews or phone calls or podcasts or something like that? And how long in transit am I going to be that I can make it to my destination for a call I have or something. So the way that I have traveled has definitely, I stay in places a lot longer than I did before. I mean, traveling to over 84 countries, which I have, initially I would travel fairly quickly. But now I definitely stay in places, maybe a week, 2 weeks or so. So that has changed.
So do you think in terms of getting older, when you're traveling, you have a deeper appreciation of the places you're going to and actually what you're learning about the place and yourself while you're there?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think in my early travel days, it was more so about having fun. And I see this also. I'm only 32, but I feel a lot older because I feel like I've been traveling for quite some time. But I see this as a definitely a difference between those who I meet traveling who are 18 to 20, early 20s, compared to me at my age now and how I travel. And you can definitely see a difference in between how you go about your travels and what you take from your travels. And so I can definitely relate to how they are, because I was the same way. I was very into, places that were more vibrant and party and, having fun and meeting people and going out and enjoying the nightlife. And sometimes when you do a lot of that stuff, you really miss the heart of what a destination has to offer. So now, I mean, I've always been interested in, like I said, nature and culture, but now it's really, I like to just be engulfed in a destination and really take in what it's all about, and seeing how I can, what that place has to offer me that I didn't really realize it might if I had been, in my earlier stages of traveling.
Many marriage proposals along the way?
Marriage proposals, they might have been, but they might have been in another language.
That's a good answer.
So I'm not quite sure. So that is unanswerable.
Now, I wanted to have you on the show today for a whole host of reasons, and one is because you have traveled a lot, and secondly, you're now using that knowledge to create a business, and I'm quite fascinated by that. So let's start talking about travel coaching. And first of all, I think it might be a good idea to explain to my audience, what is your definition of a travel coach?
Yeah, so thank you so much for asking me. So my personal definition and my business definition of a travel coach is that a travel coach is just someone who takes their authentic travel experiences, their perspective, their expertise, and their niche, and they help those who best relate to them based on what they know best, how to help someone in the best way. So for instance, I might not have said that very clear, but for instance, I am a solo female backpacker, budget traveler for so long. So I found myself, over the years, people always came to me for travel advice, and I found myself that I was able to talk to a certain limit about my travels. But then I had people from different backgrounds come to me and with specific questions that I couldn't answer. For instance, maybe they were a mom who was traveling with their kids, or it was a couple looking to enhance their relationship traveling, or someone of a certain race or color, or maybe someone with a certain disability or an illness of some sort and wanted to travel more. I couldn't relate to these things, but I knew traveling, I had met a whole world of people who were also passionate travelers who did have those answers, who they could relate to this person asking me these questions. So for me, a travel coach is just someone who takes what is personal and authentic to themselves, of what they know and love, and believe in most about travel, and help those who best relate to them. So in my travel coaching, I am a firm believer that travel is a powerful tool to help people thrive mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and also in the workplace. And so that is where my main focus as a travel coach is. So a lot of times people get confused and they say, well, you're a travel coach, you must just help people travel. Maybe they confuse it often with a travel agent. I don't do itineraries. In my definition of a travel coach, we don't do bookings, itineraries. That's a whole different area. This is about traveling, helping people obtain travel in their own terms through confidence boosting, empowerment, the education behind why it's important to, travel more in your life, in your work life or your home life or your personal, your maybe relationship life. And I focus a lot on all the research out there. There's been years and years of research that really shows the wellness benefits of travel, how it can boost your mental state, your physical well-being, and also how it can help you become more productive and thrive more in the workplace and in your professional life. And I found it really interesting that a lot of people and companies don't really are not tapping into that true potential of travel despite the studies out there. So for me, because travel has transformed me in so many ways, and I knew that people turn to travel for their own unique reasons, whether that's to heal from a traumatic life event, to soul search, to strengthen a relationship, or whatever it might be. I knew that travel is a powerful tool, and I wanted to be able to bring that bridge, that connection between people traveling and people understanding why they travel and how they can use it to help them thrive in life.
As a travel coach, is this a kind of a one-on-one service where you actually sit with your guest and you actually go through preparing them for their upcoming travel adventure? Is that how it works?
So what I do is I talk more about, well, I focus more in the corporate space, but as for just individual travelers, I focus more on what I do. I give them a long rundown. I ask them questions, get to know them. Why are they traveling? What is causing them to travel? What is holding back from traveling? What kind of experience do they need to have to be able to have the results and the outcomes that they're looking for, or their lifestyle or their home life that they desire upon returning? I also, of course, talk about budgeting and financial health. But it really is, I'm a coach. So my clients have the answers within. Everyone has the answers within, but it's my job to help pull those out of you. And so you can use travel as a tool and to help you, have this transformative experience that you're looking for, but you may not really be aware of it. And therefore, in turn, when you're able to identify within yourself what it is that you need out of this experience and why you're even going on this trip in the first place, those are going to help you answer where to go, when to go, who to go with, what kind of experience you need, what kind of activities to do on your own. You're going to know whether you need to spend time alone. You're going to know if you need to go someplace warm or isolated in the mountains, or a big city, or whatever it might be. You're going to know what kind of activities you need to do, based on you figuring out your why in the first place for your travels.
Now, the travel industry is such a huge industry and it has a lot of different subsectors. Is there specific areas that you're focusing on other than the corporate world, as you just mentioned?
Yeah, so that's more so for the travel side that I just explained, or for the individual traveler side. As for the corporate side, though, I focus on the wellness side of traveling. So I developed a 8-step framework, which is called the Travel Coach Approach, where I focus on things like empowerment, education, hyper personalization, and of course the wellness benefits of travel, and a few other points, like your mindset. And I use that to help companies enhance their corporate wellness programs as well as their business travel initiatives. And really, for the corporate wellness side, is really empowering people to use their vacation days and to use travel as a tool to help them in their work life. And then as for the business travel, traveling, you might have, of course, you know what the word leisure is, but how to really enhance their experience on their business trip, whether that's extending a stay or, coming in a little bit earlier or just using any time that they have available to really have an experience in their destination that is really going to benefit their health versus being a constant road warrior that is stressed out and poor health, which is a big problem that's going on in the business travel industry
Mm.
right now.
Let's talk about being an entrepreneur. When did you first start to get this idea into your head about setting up a business around this?
Yeah, so I started this actually just a little over a year ago. I was sitting in the north of Spain in a hostel, and I just turned 31 years old. And I said, I know that I want to start a business, and I didn't know exactly what, but I knew throughout my 10 years of traveling that I was collecting all these ideas and I was learning a lot about the industry. I was traveling during a prime phase of not only the travel industry, but also the internet. So there's a rise in the travel industry in technology and apps and websites and blogging and all these resources and tools that were really being, accessible versus when I first began at 22. I saw what was working, what was trending, what people didn't like, what travelers did like. And then at the same time, there was the rise in the internet. So there's the influencers, the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. And then of course there's the rise of the digital nomad world too. So during the past decade, I was just engulfed in this world of the travel industry rising and the rise of the internet just changing and morphing and all these new ideas. So but at the same time, I was really struggling to figure out what my purpose in the industry was. But I knew that my travels and my experience was unique in a way that I could make a difference somehow. And I believe so deeply in the power of travel on people. And so I started studying. I started studying more about the industry. I started interviewing people when I was traveling. I started researching the trends in the travel industry, the problems, what travel companies were doing, what brands were doing, what problems lied, where the voids existed until something clicked. And at that time, I also learned about the rise or the coaching world. There was life coaches and health coaches and all these different coaches that I saw online. And for me, it made sense to be a travel coach, right? Like what else would I be if, it sounds right. So, but the thing was a year ago when I decided to dub myself a travel coach, I didn't have any hesitation until I realized that I had people reaching out to me asking me, "Oh, that sounds interesting. What is it?" And it clicked to me to run to Google and type in travel coaching, which I hadn't done beforehand. And I realized that the first 5 things that popped up were travel coach buses, which meant that there really wasn't an area established for travel coaching yet. And also, I didn't have anyone to turn to, unlike the world of life coaches and health coaches, to teach me how to build a travel coaching business. And because I am not the norm and I don't like to run away from things, I like to do it, I run towards danger, I guess, in life. I could have been afraid and I could have said, okay, it must not exist. No one does it. Doesn't make sense. Find something else. I created what's called the Travel Coach Network. And I said, I know that if this is something that I want, I don't know exactly what it is yet, but I know it's something I want. I know there's a world of other travelers out there who can relate to me. And so let me figure this out. And so that's where I grew my business.
Fantastic. Why didn't you choose to go down the path of, and I'm just playing devil's advocate by asking you this question, but why didn't you go down the path of being a travel writer or blogger or vlogger or whatever?
Yeah, that's actually that those are some of the things that inspired me to become a travel coach. And those are some of the struggles that I did have. Um, that's where I was talking about the rise in the online world with all these different types of jobs and freelance things that people were doing to make money to travel. I actually never worked while traveling. I had a blog, but I wrote it for free. Other than that, I didn't do any of those other things that people were doing. And even though they had crossed my mind, I started studying the problems that people were having as bloggers, as travel writers, as influencers, as travel agents, and realize that I didn't want to have those problems. And the problems I'm talking about are, people struggling to keep their voice in the industry, to, get paid, people not enjoying their travels because they're stuck trying to, write articles that probably aren't going to pay them a sufficient amount of money. And I didn't want those. I wanted to enjoy my travels. And I knew that there must have been more. I didn't enjoy creating itineraries like travel agents. I didn't want to work for somebody else to tell me what kind of travel advice I can give or anything like that. I knew that there must be something more. And that's why I decided to, jump on the journey that I did to shake up the industry and to introduce something new to the travel industry.
Now, the Travel Coach Network kind of has connotations to me that it's a community that you're building. Can anybody who's traveled be a travel coach?
Yeah, so pretty much, yes. Anyone who is a passionate enough traveler, you don't have to travel to 84 countries to be a travel coach, that's for sure. It's just anyone who really is a firm you believe in travel enough that you want to help others accomplish something that travel has done for you or something similar. So really, yes, anyone can become a travel coach, but you have to have it in your heart to come from an authentic place versus a place of I don't know, like a lot of times, like when people turn to become a travel agent, they want to do it because it's the trend, it's what people are doing, it seems easy. But it's people who really want to take control over their idea that there's more out there to do in the world of travel and the travel industry, and they really want to make an imprint and an impact in the industry. And those are the people who would be great travel coaches. So yeah, and it doesn't really matter how much you've traveled, how far you traveled, or how you traveled. It's really just your perspective and your belief in what travel can do for people. And yes, the Travel Coach Network is a growing community of travel coaches that I have in my network, in my program called the Travel Coach Program, where I help people just do exactly what I did in their own unique way to find a business and build a business that is authentic to them and means something to them and that they are passionate about.
So you've been into this now for just over a year. I'm interested to know what the demographics are of some of the early enablers that have come on board in your community. Are they specific age range?
As for my travel coaches, no, it's really a wide range of people. Obviously, it's not a younger demographic as for 18 to early 20s, because at that time you're still really figuring out what travel is to you. But it's really people in their late 20s and on, especially in the older demographics who really have travel has done something for them throughout their lives, that they're now finally realizing that it is what their passion is. I have some travel coaches in my program who worked corporate jobs and for big companies, and they're like, despite what I do in my job, travel is my passion, and it might have nothing to do with their career is. So it really is a wide range. I find that it's a lot more female than males reaching out, which I haven't really figured out why that is yet, but yeah, it really is a big difference between the different demographics.
What's your vision for the travel coaching business in the next 5 years? Where do you see it in 5 years from now?
Oh, good gracious. I am so excited for where it's going to go in 5 years from now. So what I do right now with my corporate side of things is just me as a travel coach, creating my programs for my corporate, for my business travel and corporate wellness, and then eventually going into travel agent trainings. But 5 years from now, I want my community of travel coaches through the Travel Coach Network to be big enough that I can create that bridge for my travel coaches to explore these great opportunities that I get with collaborations, partnerships, companies, and represent the Travel Coach Network across the board, and be the go-to travel coaches. If companies need people to help with, what I do with my programs with enhanced travel or intuitive travel, it would be the Travel Coach Network they go to. and really just being it'd be under an umbrella, but my travel coaches all specialize in their own niches in their own areas. And so people could really find someone who is best relates to them that they can learn from. But then also this within the next year and a half, I'm going to be starting the online travel coach institute. So it's going to be the home of my travel coach programs, but also the home for my trainings for my corporate side of things. So I want in 5 years from now that to be the place where if you're going to be a travel coach, you got to get certified through here. If you want your employees, your HR, your booking managers to be trained for enhanced travel experiences, they would go through the Travel Coach Institute as well. So I have big dreams for it, and I know I'll make it happen.
Very cool. Tell us, what's a couple of the most challenging things of being an entrepreneur these days?
Oh gosh, what isn't challenging about being an entrepreneur these days? It's a very exciting, best thing I've ever done, but it's very difficult. I think one of the biggest challenges for me personally was, like I mentioned about travel, of learning to ask for help, was learning how to ask for help. You can't do everything yourself. Even though you want to have your hands in all the pots. You have to learn what you're good at, what you like, what you enjoy doing most, and you have to learn how to delegate and build a team. So I'm at that point in my business right now. But also blocking out the noise of the internet. The internet is a powerful tool. It's what taught me how to build my business that I have. It's where I harbor my business, but it's also a world full of noise, and you have to learn how to create boundaries and to filter. And that was a big learning lesson for me in the early stages, the first couple months of starting my business. Not comparing yourself to others, not being overwhelmed by all the influence out there of do this, choose that, buy that, use this, work this way, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of challenges, but it's a fun journey.
What's your relationship with social media? Do you have a love-hate relationship with social media?
I do actually. I've never actually been a fan of social media. I use my Facebook and my Instagram as just a way to share my journey with my friends and family. So I never had to think of it as a business standpoint and use way to grow a following or anything like that. So that shift has been very eye-opening for me, and learning how to become more visible myself and putting myself out there on things like video. That has also been pretty difficult. I like to be a recluse, and I'm very introverted, despite how worldly I am. So being able to go on video and do Facebook Lives or Instagram stories has been really difficult for me. And I'm learning, how to, how to do it better, and how to be, disassociate myself from the fearful Sahara and the business, show my face Sahara. So that has been difficult, but yeah, I definitely have a love-hate with social media, but that's one of the things that I learned to delegate. There's people who absolutely love to manage it and take control over it. So I'm on that road right now too.
I'd just like to pick up on this aspect of putting yourself out there, because there's a lot of people that listen to my show. I have a lot of people who are wannabe travel bloggers and writers, and people that have been doing it for years and years, and they struggle in certain areas. Now, I've watched a few videos of yours, and your transparency and authenticity that comes across about your anxiety around that sort of thing is very impressive. And I just want you to share a couple of tips with my listeners who might be having those same kind of thoughts around anxiety of putting themselves in a Facebook Live situation or whatever. What would you say to them to help them overcome some of those fears?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that. Yeah, anxiety has definitely been something that I've struggled. It's actually one of the things that initiated my travels in the first place. But which sounds kind of odd to say, but it really has. But yeah, learning how to become more visible, having anxiety, just knowing that it does get easier and it takes practice. And knowing that putting yourself out there and taking those risks, and being raw and authentic, that is what's going to draw the right people that you need, not only in your business, but also in your life. You're going to, if you never share your story and you don't, authenticity is one of my core values for my entire business and my way of life. So if I was not following through with that, I would be, not being real to myself. So I had to learn to overcome these and work on overcoming my anxiety and putting myself out there and sharing more about my story, because I knew that it was important for my audience to know more about me. So if you're struggling with anxiety or you're afraid of going on camera or sharing more about your story, take it slow, share little things at a time. And I promise you that the feedback that you get is a lot more powerful than the fear of anxiety, or the anxiety and the fear that you have. Just knowing that you're able to, it's really empowering to when people reach out and they say, oh, I can connect with you on that. I relate to you. That resonates with me, because that's really what, business is all about. It's about creating these relationships and finding people who best relate to you, who like you, who trust you, who believe in you. And if you don't share any of that about yourself, you're never going to find those people. So just taking it slow and trusting in the process, and doing some practice. I started on I create a Facebook page that's private just to you. You don't have to put anything on it. Just create a private Facebook page and go live on it and practice. That was one of the things that I did, so that you know how to play around with the tool itself and how to get more comfortable on camera. And practice with a friend or your parent or something, and say, how does this talk look? And try not to be too scripted as well. That's something that really helped me a lot too. When you try to stick to a script and make things sound perfect, that's when you're going to sound disingenuous, and you're going to mess up, and then you're going to get in your head, and then you're going to be mad at yourself for messing up, all at the same time. So really just go with the flow and create a looser framework and a structure and outline more so of what to talk about, and just be yourself. And I promise you that the feedback and the response that you get is a lot more enlightening than your fear.
There you go. There's some really fantastic tips, and I'm going to include the links to Sahara Rose's sites in the show notes today, because I know that many of my listeners are going to want to reach out, Sahara, and connect with you, that's for sure. So thank you for sharing those tips. They were really, really fantastic. My next question is around if you were to start your journey as an entrepreneur again, right from the beginning, what would you do, if anything, differently than what you've done?
I honestly wouldn't do anything differently, because it really is a journey and it's a process. And it's learning as you go. So even if someone said, if I can come and I can make things easier for you from the very beginning, would I do it? Absolutely not. Because it makes you the type of entrepreneur that you are. You have to go through different ups and downs and challenges in order to know your strengths and to learn about yourself and learn business in general. If everything was easy the whole time, that's not the reality. So what's going to happen? How are you going to react when something bad does happen, or things don't go how you do want? So it really is a learning lesson. So I wouldn't do anything differently. I learn as I go. I try not to live life with having regrets. I consciously think of, should I make this decision? Should I do this or that? Will I regret it? And if I feel like I'll regret it, I will go for it and I'll do it, despite whatever the outcome might be, because I rather live with trying than having a regret and kicking myself for not doing it or not going for it, no matter how scary something can be. And learning that it's okay to fail and to use everything you learn into a way to grow in your business, shifting your mindset too. So everything I've gone through in my business has taught me something and made me who I am today and got my business to where it is. So I definitely wouldn't change anything.
Great response. Now it's time for a couple of curveball questions. What's your favorite snack food when you're traveling?
This is really strange, but I love candied ginger. Like the candied crystallized ginger. And I always eat it when I travel. It's easy to get in other countries. It's less expensive there. So I don't know but ginger is really good on the stomach. So I would have like get nauseous on bus rides and car rides. So I started eating ginger, and I found the candied ginger, and I am obsessed.
Ah, there you go. That now I ask my guests that question all the time, and you're the first person that's come up with candyized ginger. So there you go. You go
I'm
straight to
sure.
the top of the list. What about window or aisle seat? What's your preference and why?
Well, definitely window seat because two reasons. I like to lean my head against the side if I want to sleep. And two, I'm 6 foot tall, so I always get my knees banged by the carts going down the aisle.
Okay, I can definitely relate to that. It used to really, really annoy me.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite airline?
Oh gosh, I really love Emirates Airline and Ava Air.
Aviair Air as well, yeah.
Yes, well, not only because it's Hello Kitty and how cute is that, but just both of those airlines, Emirates and Ava, they're very nice and they're very generous, and let's be real, they give a lot of food.
Okay, cool. Now, I guess in terms of, starting to wrap this up today, one of the many things that you've talked about in terms of your travel experiences, how it actually changes people. What do you think are the biggest changes people experience when they travel?
I think people learn something about themselves that they didn't realize that they had. And what I mean by that is, I think when people go on a journey, on a trip, vacation, whatever it might be, they realize that there's something in life that there are voids in life, in their own life, and travel fills them or opens their eyes to them in some way. That's what draws people back to traveling in the first place, and it's what draws people to traveling when there's things going on in life. And that's why I always ask people, what is causing you to want to travel? So I think when people go on these journeys of traveling, it really just teaches them more of what they want out of life that they weren't getting before at home before they left. And that's what opens their eyes to, do I need to end a relationship? Do I need to spend more time alone? Do I need to quit that job? Do I need to spend more time with my children? Do I need more adventure in my life and excitement, or jumping off of out of an airplane? What do I need? And travel is something that really opens people's eyes to this realization.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, where are you off to next? What's your next destination?
Well, I'm actually going to be in Australia in
Mm.
March for the Wellness Tourism Summit in Noosa. That's in March, and I'm going to stop in Bali and hold some free travel coaching workshops. And then I'm going to be heading back to Israel for a few months and living and working there.
Well, when you come to Australia, Noosa's probably about 60 kilometres away from where I am right now, so you'll have to come and say hello. And
Oh,
I love catching up
absolutely.
with my guests in person. We've done it a couple of times already, and you're welcome aboard the sailboat.
Oh, that would be amazing. How fun would that be?
There we go. Well, listen, Sahara Rose, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on my show today and sharing your wonderful journey with not only your travel, but also now the Travel Coaching Network. And as I say, I'm going to put all the links in the show notes so people can get in contact with you and find out more about what you're doing to change the whole face of the travel industry. So thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's been a joy to have you here.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun. You're such a delight.
And don't forget to have a shout out to your mum as well, because you've dedicated the show to her, and I'm sure she'll
Oh,
enjoy listening
yeah.
to you as well.
I know. Thank you, Mom, for being the woman that you are.
Fantastic. Well, I'm going to have you back again next time. Maybe when you come down to Australia, we can do a live show together, and you can share your thoughts about Noosa and that beautiful part of the country.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
Cool. Okay, well, have a great time, and thanks again for being on the show.
All right. Thank you so much. Ciao.
There we go. That was Sahara Rose Vore talking to me about being a travel coach as well as traveling around the world and all the wonderful rewards one gets from doing that. Now, if you want to check out more about what Sahara's doing, I'm going to put the links to her Facebook page, etc., into the show notes here. I strongly suggest, if you are interested in finding out more about the travel coaching network she's creating, have a look at her Facebook page. She's got great videos up there explaining and training people on exactly how that all works, and I'm sure you'll find it interesting like I did. Okay, well that's it for this particular episode. Don't forget to check out our website at www.globaltravelchannel.com. That's where you'll find all of our episodes. Don't forget to download them using iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and a host of other locations that are all listed there on the website. And as a friendly reminder, if you love the content on this show, why not tell someone about it? Maybe a family member, a good friend, or even a work colleague, and get them listening to the Global Travel Channel podcast show. I'm trying to expand the show around the world so more and more people get connected to us. And anything you can do to help me out would be greatly appreciated. There we go. So my work is now all done. And the final thing for me to say is my name is Mark Philpott. And until we meet next time, I wish you all a happy bon voyage.